Can you believe it? I got paid $5,000 for this piece. Which piece? I will show you. Hey guys, this is Mary and welcome to my channel. Today I'm gonna take you step by step through my very first commissioned cartoon style portrait. The artwork is going to be of a super cute mom and daughter, and they sent me their photo and I'm gonna use that as a reference. In this video, I'm going to share some key tips that help you. will help you improve your drawing and coloring process. And at the same time, I'll walk you through my workflow step by step. I will also share some tips that make your drawing way more appealing and really capture people's attention. Let's start with tip number 1. With one sketch, you're never going to get the result you want. You have to keep sketching until you reach the design you're happy with. Since I was asked to create this commission in a cartoon style, the sketches still need to have some resemblance to the original photo, so that when the client sees it, they're like, oh my god, we look so cute. So tip number 1 is make multiple sketches until you get it right. Once you have a sketch you're happy with, you need to transfer it cleanly on your final paper. And when I say clean, I mean really clean. The last thing you want is deliver a messy drawing. That's why it's super important to use a kneaded eraser to lift off any extra graphite while you work. In this step, I first go over my sketch with darker lines and fix any mistakes. Then I use a kneaded eraser to prep the drawing for coloring. Marking the important areas with a regular pencil is super helpful. It keeps you from getting lost once you start coloring. Tip number 3. Choose the right colors. Always pick the colors that harmonize together and stay close to the reference photo your client sent you. If you're using markers like I do, make sure to build up multiple layers so the drawing looks smooth. Use markers to block in all the shadows before moving to the next step. For the skin tones, I like to start with a soft shade that's pretty close to the character's natural color. And then I build it up with multiple layers of markers so the colors blend out smooth and even. Here's a super important little tip. Markers actually have 2 tips, and each one's perfect for different parts of your drawing. I usually go with the brush tip, and the trick is to color fast, so you don't end up with those annoying streaky lines on the paper. Tip number 4. Focus on the eyes. The eyes are so important. Even the smallest mistake can totally change the resemblance to the original photo. And when you're drawing them, keep checking back with the reference picture. Of course, the face shape, the nose, and the lips are matter a lot, but the eyes can make or maybe break the portrait. And tip number 5. Color layer by layer. After markers, I go in with color pencils and I just keep building layer after layer after layer and after layer. This layering technique gives your artwork depth, makes the colors look more realistic, and most importantly, it leads to an amazing final result. But remember, this takes a lot of patience. Tip number 6. The skin must be smooth. If you're doing a cartoon style, you need to focus on the skin coloring. Start with light base tones and then add the darker values step by step. If you're using markers first and then color pencils, build up light layers and blend as you go, so the colors seamlessly merge. Repeat this stage until the colors naturally combine and the skin looks even and luminous. Keep layering until it feels perfect. Tip number 7. When it comes to coloring hair and clothes, here's what I like to do. I start with a base layer using markers to block in all the colors and shadows, and then I use color pencils to add different dimension. But honestly, it depends on the details of the character. Sometimes I use color pencils from the very beginning and I keep layering. A tiny pro tip: using markers for your base can save more time and make shading a lot easier. But if you prefer to do everything with color pencils, just remember, it takes more time and patience. So figure out which method works best for you. And trust me, if you follow these steps, you'll be saying goodbye to the beginner stage. When you're using markers for the base layer, it's a good idea to also block in some of the shadows and details with slightly darker shades. But remember, also build up the colors layer by layer so they blend together smoothly. And here's the key. You gotta work fast. Speed is the real secret to getting a clean, smooth blend with markers. You can also add some of the shadows with darker markers. That way it makes things a lot easier once you switch to color pencils. Just remember, build it up layer by layer with those deeper tones. Using the broad chisel tip of a marker is actually a smart choice for covering big areas. But here's the catch, blending with it can be pretty tricky. So what I usually do is add the shadows in those larger spaces with color pencils, or sometimes even soft pastels. It really depends on the vibe of the piece. Alright, now that it's time for the color pencils, here's what I do. I pick a shade that's just one step darker than the base color. And then I keep adding even darker layers on top. And at the very end, I like to use a tissue to blend everything together. It actually works pretty well. Tip number 8. Clean, clean, clean. Maybe I'm too perfectionist, but I think it makes all the difference. After finishing the characters, I use a kneaded eraser to clean up all the background. It is super important to use a kneaded eraser for the background if you're planning to use soft pastels, because if there are pencil smudges left over, the pastel will pick them up and your artwork will look messy. Here's how I do it. I use a sharp cutter to scrape the pastel into powder and then spread it with a tissue on the areas I want. I tried it lightly on the clothes and it kind of worked, but I think the real magic happens on the untouched areas. First, I start with white pastel powder and spread it evenly, then layer the other colors on top. This way the colors blend together without dirty patches. Make sure there are no big chunks in your pastel powder, otherwise you'll end up with harsh lines and it's gonna make your background look messy. And finally, the most satisfying part. I carefully peel off the tape around the edges. And here is it, the final result. I think it turned out super cute. What do you think? Tell me in the comments. Now it's all ready to head off to its new owner. Since this piece has to be delivered to a client in another city, packaging is super important. Here's my method. I put the artwork in a protective cover, place sheets of paper on the back and the front, then roll it up gently and slide it into a strong cardboard tube. And finally, I seal it in my own packaging style, so it looks professional and cute. Of course, you can totally package your artwork in a different way if that's your style, but for me, I always want to make sure my drawing arrives safe, and that's why I stick to this method, because I know it works. Alright, it's time to say goodbye to my drawing, and I hope they take good care of you. And bye bye!